I can't believe it's been over 9 months since I made this video about Matteo's BTD5 world record, where he got all the way up to around 4,114. But what's even more insane is the fact that in those 9 months, he has gone on to set a new world record that I wasn't even sure would be possible, by making it all the way up to around 10,000. And just to be clear, Matteo still isn't done yet. He did take a little break after hitting the 10k mark, not to sit back and enjoy the accomplishment though, but rather it was so he could take a crack at the world record for the Flash version of BTD5 as well. And if you saw my video about his round 4,114 record, you'll know that the Flash version of this game is way different than the one that we have here on Steam. So it was pretty impressive when Matteo managed to achieve the third highest round of all time on what I believe to be his first serious attempt at a BTD5 Flash free play run. And now, he is back on the Steam version of BTD5 as well, ready to push even further than round 10,000. Although, you may notice something weird about this screenshot. Like, maybe the fact that Matteo seems to basically have no defense on the map. But there is a really smart strategy behind what he is actually doing here, because Matteo realized that with perfect timing, he can use the cripple Moab snipers in order to stall a single ZOMG at the end of each round, keeping it perfectly stuck in place, which is valuable because due to the amount of extra health that ZOMGs have when you're this far into free play, it takes over 4 hours just for the snipers to finally pop that ZOMG into BFBs, and thus, Matteo is able to farm over 10 million extra lives every single round that he does this, which is more than enough to offset the 2.5 million lives that he loses on average from not having a proper defense anymore. And thanks to the tower stacking glitch that he's been making great use of throughout every phase of this run, Matteo is also able to stack 180 helicopters on top of each other to actually farm extra lives with as well. And the reason he chose that number is because you can't actually use more than 180 helicopter abilities due to how long they take to cool down, since the max is 1 ability use per frame in this game. But even with so many supply crate helicopters stacked on top of each other, it still takes a long time just to gain all of the extra lives that are required for such a run. You see, Matteo initially began his new world record attempt all the way back on February 9th of this year, although he certainly wasn't using the trick with the sniper monkeys yet either. Rather, he actually took advantage of the fact that the pro version of the Banana Farmer Special Agent can spit banana peels out from its cannon infinitely after picking up a single bunch or crate of bananas. And since it doesn't damage the balloons while setting them backwards, you can use this to infinitely stall out the early rounds, especially with an ice monkey and or a glue gunner, as long as they're low enough tiers to not deal damage to the balloons either. So this is what Matteo did during the early game to stall out the rounds, so that he could first build up enough money to actually afford all 180 helicopters, and then use them to begin farming extra lives with as well. But even with the maximum rate of 1 ability use every single frame, this process wasn't going to be exactly fast, as it would actually take a full 17 days just for Matteo to reach the 1 billion life mark. And if you're coming from BTD6, it's probably quite surprising to learn that you can even gain so many extra lives in this game, and that's because you're only limited by the fact that lives are stored as a signed 32-bit integer in this game, meaning that you can only get up to a little over 2.1 billion before the sign will flip and you will actually end up in the negatives. And all in all, it wouldn't be until March 19th that Matteo would finally reach this limit, meaning he could now begin the next phase of his run. If you've been enjoying this video so far, it would be really cool if you could drop a like and maybe even subscribe to the channel as well. I'm trying to get to 25,000 before the new year, which will only be possible with all of your guys' help. But as far as Matteo's defense goes, he was about to utilize tower stacking to its fullest potential once again, getting a total of 169 temples stacked in the center and corners of Express Shipping, which of course you all know is my favorite map in the game, along with him stacking multiple chippers in every spot that you see them in as well. And by doing all of this, Matteo was able to ensure that his defense would make the absolute most of his effort to farm so many extra lives. But as far as getting to a new world record round, it wasn't going to exactly be quick. I mean, I've only ever gone to about round 1000 myself, but even that took around a week's time. so I can only imagine what Matteo had ahead of him. And that's why I also want to give a quick shout out to another player who's recently got up to around 6,500 themselves. Smil would have set a new world record if it hadn't been for Matteo's incredible efforts this year, and they definitely deserve some respect as well. But as far as the round 10,000 run goes, Matteo began it on April 20th, and it would literally take a full month just for him to start approaching his previous world record. By May 20th, Matteo had gotten up to around 4,126, and the most insane part is that he still hadn't lost any lives yet either. Imagine if his defense had been this effective on the previous run. Even if he did only farm 300 million extra lives then, it would have already been enough to get even further than he did at the time. And as you can imagine, combining the maximum number of lives with pretty much the maximum amount of temple stacking that a computer can handle was going to net an absolutely insane result. On May 24th, Matteo was on round 4,444 and had finally began losing lives as well. But it would take another 3 days just for him to lose another million lives, and he was already up to around 4,661 at this point. By June 8th, Matteo would hit around 5,555, and he had only lost around 22 million of its 2.147 billion lives so far. But this trend couldn't continue forever. No matter how strong that your defense is, eventually the Bloons will get so strong and so fast that you're going to begin losing an insane amount of lives every single round. By round 9,000, Matteo still had over 1 billion lives remaining, but it only took another 845 rounds for him to be reduced to just 183 million lives, and just 48 more rounds to bring him down to 120.2 million. At this point, Matteo was losing over 1 million lives per round, and it really seemed like he might not even get to round 10,000, which would be an incredibly huge shame after the sheer amount of time and effort that he had put into this run. Even if he had the world record by a mile, Matteo knew he couldn't let things end this way. And that is where he discovered the trick with the crippled Moab snipers that I had mentioned much earlier in this video. And on September 8th, with just 17 million lives remaining and 31 rounds short of the round 10,000 mark, Matteo began farming for more lives. And honestly, I have to imagine that there isn't really anything stopping him from using this trick forever if he wanted to, but of course, it does make each round take over 4 hours already, and as he went further, that would only continue to get worse and worse as the ZOMGs continued gaining more health, so this would mean that he could maybe get 5 rounds per day at best, which is obviously not very realistic. And yeah, that is certainly a lot worse than the 50 or so rounds per day that he can get with a fully built defense at least. But in any case, Matteo would farm another 42 million lives, which took from the 8th to the 10th of September, and then he would rebuild his defense, and finally, after 7 months of work, Matteo Blooner would become the first, and likely for a very long time, the only person in history to achieve the round 10,000 mark in Bloons Tower Defense 5, without using something like Cheat Engine to skip to that round, of course. And like I was saying towards the beginning of this video, he's still not done either. In fact, Matteo is currently farming extra lives. He's well past 70 million, and as far as I can tell, he's gonna basically dedicate however many years it takes to getting to the true limit of this game, which could be well into the 10,000s. I'm not exactly sure, but it's going to be really exciting to see, and based on the fact that 9 months ago I was making a video about his previous world record, and I'm sitting here today talking about the fact that he hit round 10,000, I truly believe Matteo is going to be the person who's willing to actually do this.